Some teeth actually exploded in people's mouths back in the 1800s.
That must be really painful.
And no one knows exactly why this happened. One theory is that this incredibly rare phenomenon occurred when untreated cavities began to create gas as the tooth decayed. Due to poor dental health, it built up pressure as more gas was released. And after a while, the pressure was so high that the damaged tooth couldn't handle it and allegedly exploded.
So that's one theory. A lot of people don't believe in that theory because they think the teeth enamel are so strong that it's not really going to explode and the gas would leak out. But that's a possibility. Another possibility is that the early fillings were these metals that had this battery effect, which would cause electrochemical cell and possibly hydrogen buildup in the tooth. But all this kind of disappeared in the 1920s with the advance of modern dentistry as things became more safer and dentists were better trained.
The gum exploded inside his mouth the moment he started chewing. You see, before chewing gum, he liked to dip it in citric acid to make it sour.
This is actually a true story. This was a gentleman, 25-year-old chemistry student in Ukraine, named of Vladimir Lekonos, who tragically died doing this. He was working on an experiment involving explosive chemicals when this happened. This is crazy.
But one night, he accidentally grabbed the wrong jar. Instead of citric acid, he coated his gum in an explosive chemical, and it instantly destroyed his jaw and lower face. His family heard the blast and ran to his room, but he was already dead.
This is really tragic. He had a passion for chemistry, and unfortunately, it led to his untimely death.
If you got stuck inside a tanning bed, the UV rays would start burning your skin within 10 minutes.
That would be extraordinarily painful. Sunburns can be terrible.
And after an hour, painful blisters would start to erupt. Soon your body would overheat, making you dizzy. And the intense UV rays would make your eyes swell so much that you'd actually lose your vision. Eventually, your body would lose so much water, you'd die of dehydration. But if you didn't, you could actually just push the lid open, since there are no locks.
The long-term effects where you'd have skin cancer, premature aging, a lot of wrinkles from UV damage, and eye damage. In reality, though, this is possible, but the good thing is there are shut-off valves and the doors open easier. But in any case, you have some risks with tanning beds, and it's important to know those risks so you can use them responsibly.
His skin froze before turning black as he rode his motorcycle in the freezing cold. And it was so bad that both his legs had to be amputated. But doctors noticed his injuries were too perfect, and the weather wasn't cold enough for frostbite. They discovered he'd actually left his feet in dry ice for 10 hours before he got on the motorcycle.
This is really interesting. It's based on a true story that happened recently in Taiwan in 2023. It was two guys. One, his surname was Zhang, and the other was Liao, conspired this scheme where they did this, and they tried to get an insurance claim for $1.4 million.
You see, he was convinced he'd get millions in insurance and staged the accident. But he only received around $7,000, and after he was caught, he had to pay it back.
Actually, it got a lot worse. After the insurance fraud was found out, they were arrested and charged with fraud. They're also facing charges for serious injuries. So in 2025, Zhang received a 2-year sentence in prison, while Lao received 6 years in prison.
If you get shot between the 4th and 5th ribs, don't panic, because this can save your life.
So between the 4th and 5th ribs, you might miss some severe heart artery structures. Ooh, but that's going to hurt a lot.
When the bullet hits, it pierces your lung but misses the heart and major arteries. So your only problem is the blood that build up inside your chest.
So that's not the only problem. When you do that, air would get into the outside, pushing the lung down, causing something called a pneumothorax. It's possible you could bleed to death from this if it hits like a significant artery,
making it impossible to breathe. But if you stab a pen or straw into your chest right above your nipple line, it releases the pressure and you won't suffocate.
This, to a certain extent, is true. If you put it between the ribs, you always want to try and get it in the second intercostal space because that's high enough. It's away from any major arteries in the midline of the clavicular midline. So that little pen would release some air, allowing air out and the blood out. And if you're bleeding heavily, Hopefully someone will reach you in time because that's a surgical emergency and you need to go to the operating room. Time would be limited before you completely bleed out.
When you drink alcohol, it enters your stomach where it quickly gets absorbed into your bloodstream. From there, it travels to your brain,
It also gets absorbed in the small intestine as well, but mostly in the stomach.
where the alcohol hijacks the messages that your brain cells send to each other.
Right, so what this does is it crosses the blood-brain barrier because of its small size, and it interferes with a few neurotransmitters, mostly GABA, glutamate, also dopamine. So GABA and glutamate increased relaxation and contribute to slowing of the brain. Dopamine gives you a feeling of pleasure when that's activated.
As it slows down some signals, it becomes difficult to focus and move naturally. And it takes over the chemical responsible for feeling tired, meaning you feel relaxed and sleepy.
So it has a lot of depressive effects. You get slowed reaction time, you can make impaired judgments, you get loss of coordination and balance, slurred speech, it changes your mood and behavior, and you can have memory problems and blackouts if you drink in large quantities.
If your brain gets damaged, you could wake up from a coma fully aware but completely unable to move or speak. This happens when your brainstem, which controls motor functions, becomes damaged. The brain can't send signals to the muscles throughout your body, leaving only eye movement and blinking for communication. But you'd still be able to think, meaning you'd essentially be trapped within your brain.
So this is a real thing. Your brainstem, part of it's called medulla oblongata, also takes care of speech and swallowing and breathing. So if that part's gone as well, then you can't breathe. So you would need to be put on a ventilator to be alive. And then also you wouldn't be able to move anything in your body, but you could still think, which obviously greatly diminishes the quality of life. These types of head injuries are really devastating.
Some people get their toenails removed on purpose, and this is usually done as a last resort before running a marathon.
That's really painful.
You see, during long-distance running, your toenails repeatedly hit the front of your shoe, and this is painful and can make your nails blackened, which could cause them to eventually fall off.
So apparently this is done by a small subset of ultra marathoners. And basically this can cause subungual hematomas. Basically that's a blood collection underneath the toenail, which can be extremely painful. And if that happens in the middle of the race, they're not going to be able to finish it.
So some extreme runners choose to just remove them before the race to prevent this altogether.
So there are a few other solutions exposed to getting this extreme. One, you could wear properly fitting shoes, keep your toenails short and trimmed, using toe protectors or silicone toe pads. And I would not recommend doing this by yourself. Removing your toenails is actually considered a medical procedure.
The surgeon removed a large portion of the man's skull,
This is common in brain surgery when you have to get in there.
intending to reattach it later during an emergency brain surgery. After several weeks, his brain had healed and was ready for the piece of his skull to be reattached. But the hospital staff couldn't find it. So instead, they used a synthetic piece, which later became infected.
But this is really horrible. They lost track of that. Yeah, anything foreign in the body, any type of implant always has a risk of infection. That's sad.
And the hospital still charged him $19,000 for the synthetic piece.
So hospitals will always charge. You know, that's the way they work.
Now the man is suing the hospital for negligence, seeking compensation for his suffering and medical expenses.
Yeah, I'm sure he's going to get a good payday with that.